Hey guys, we're back in the kitchen today with part of our tea series. Teaching you and telling you about some tips and things that we know about tea and things that we've learned about tea. So I'm gonna take a step back and give you a throwback. It's a bit of a recipe that has a little bit of nostalgia for me. This was popular in the 60s, and it isn't really a steeped or a brewed tea. It is instant, and you might think, ugh, but I bet many of you remember this from your grandmother's house or your mom's house. It's called Russian tea or friendship tea. So I'm anxious to have it because I haven't had it in a very long time, and we thought it might be an interesting twist to share a throwback with you. So the first thing that it calls for is 2 cups of Tang orange drink mix, and I've got my cup measuring scoop here, and you can do this unsweetened by buying all of the unsweetened versions of these things, but I'm using the one with the sugar. So I've got my 2 cups in there, and that leaves just a little bit in here, so you can work the numbers out if you want to use the whole container of Tang. Okay, so our next ingredient is sugar, and it calls for 1 1/4 cups of sugar. But if you'll notice here, this says what we found at the store was Southern sweet tea. So we've kind of done our math, and I am going to eliminate the sugar component of the recipe because it's already in the tea. And I'm going to combine the amounts, and I'm going to do 1 3/4 cup of the tea. So let me get my 1 cup measuring cup. Because there's already sugar in here. 1 3/4. So if you're at home and you're using unsweetened tea like it calls for, it's a 1/2 cup of unsweetened instant tea, and it's a 1 1/4 cups of sugar. And we've just improvised on our recipe, which happens to me a lot, so no worries. Anyway, we are going to put in 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and then a 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, which cloves are so good for you. And in the bottom of my little container, I've got about a 1/2 teaspoon. So I'm just gonna dump all that in and be done with that container. And then the one last thing, it does not call for nutmeg. However, my mom did add some nutmeg when I was younger, and she kept it made up. So I'm gonna add just a bit of nutmeg because I love it. The other thing that the recipe calls for, and you may remember, is the little cinnamon Red Hots, the little cinnamon candies. So you can either add those ground up to the mix, like by doing them in your food processor, or you can add them whole, and it kind of flavors the mix by being in there. Plus they melt in your hot water. I'm not gonna add the cinnamon candies because it's just added sugar, and I always had it without that as a kid. So now we're gonna mix up our dry ingredients, and this ends up being our friendship tea instant mix. And this smells so good as you stir it. It just smells like a cup of comfort and a cup of spice. Now I'll get this all stirred up. And what I've done is I've chopped up a navel orange. I've quartered it like this. And I'm gonna have a hot cup of water. So for every cup of water, you're gonna add 3 teaspoons of your powdered mix to the hot water, and then you can float an orange in it if you want, or you don't have to. The other thing that this is nice for is it makes a nice gift for friends, an easy, inexpensive thing to give. And so I've made a little tag, friendship tea, with the amount of powder to put in your hot water per cup of water. And I've dressed it up kind of nice. And so you fill that up and you give it as a gift to a friend. So this is what our powdered mix looks like. You just keep it in a big jar or do it for gifts. And I'm gonna get a cup of hot water and have a nice cup and show you what that looks like. Okay, so with it made and already mixed up, you've got your powder, you've got it in a nice little jar, which, or big jar for your kitchen counter. So all you do is go over to your jar, quickly and easily, it's 3 teaspoons into hot water, 1 cup of hot water. Oh, it smells so good. I'm going to stir it up till it mixes and choose a little orange slice, float that in there. If you can kind of see the color. Oh, that's so good. All right, enjoy and thanks for joining us today.